Okay, we are now T-minus 23 hours and about maybe 45 minutes to the end of the Artemis II mission. Earlier this hour, those 4 astronauts took questions from the public one last time, and one in particular clearly impressed them with its thoughtfulness.
If you could relive one moment of this mission so far, what would it be?
Wow, we are all brainstorming, and it would be a lot easier if you had said a list of 5, but I'm actually going to go way back because the big contenders are the eclipsed moon, which was one of the most surreal things any of us have ever seen, and it literally rendered us speechless. But I'm going to go all the way back to launch, because when we launched, it is such a quick experience. Our entire powered flight on the rocket was shorter than what we've done in this press conference so far. Yet it is such an incredible, important part of the mission, a dynamic phase in the mission. We train it so much. And if I could go back and replay it in slow motion to just imprint those memories even more, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Darius is watching this mission closely, joins us now. They're so amazing, right? This is a live news conference. They don't know what questions they're going to be asked. She's thinking it through as she's answering the question. She comes up with a great answer. You know, a lot of people have been asking me, I was 5 kilometers away from the launch site, whether I could feel the vibrations. I don't remember. I was so focused on the visual spectacle and the sound that just washed over me, and some anxiety about the fate of the 4 astronauts. I don't remember if I felt it or not.
That's so disappointing, because I was so excited to hear whether you felt it or not. One thing that NASA has to do when they launch a huge rocket like this is flood the launch pad with water so that it absorbs some of the vibrations. Water is really good at that. Otherwise, you're talking cracking and fracturing of the launch pad, which you don't want. So I'm curious if you still felt the vibrations.
Yeah, and I mean, part of my point there is that so much is going on. Even for me, 5 kilometers away watching this, as we heard, for them, it just happened so quickly, and she wishes that she could kind of relive that moment.
I know that was your point, but I just went to the science. My mind went to the science.
You want to express your disappointment, though, too. Okay,
I want to talk a little bit about some of those moments, just because it's been 8 days now since the launch happened. It feels at once like it was yesterday and a month ago. This is a 3-minute exposure of the launch after the rocket took off. She mentioned that she wants to go back and relive the launch in slow motion, and lucky for us, we can do that with the power of video. So here is a now I skipped it. Now it's a slow motion video of the launch.
Here we go.
And
is that it now?
The power. This is it now. This is
so
in
one
slow
of these
motion.
Paul Hunter told me to expect is that speed of light, you see it instantly. Speed of sound, slower. I do remember there was a gap, seeing this but not hearing it. It was pretty cool.
It's I don't know what to say. It's so cool. Let's move on now, because I have too much I want to say. This is the eclipse that they were talking about as well. I wanted to show it, but we can move on now.
Okay, and did you want to play a clip of one of the astronauts,
the
pilot?
Yes, I wanted to play a clip of Victor Glover, the pilot on the ship, because he gave a really interesting and profound answer to one of those questions, like you said, that he just answered on the spot. So just take a listen.
A rover can collect data a lot slower, but the human's going to be able to do it much faster. But then they're also going to come back and tell you how it feels. But physiologically, in a technical and medical sense, but also in an emotional sense, so that we can continue to have that human connection, not just the scientific and exploration, but the human connection.
And that really leads nicely into the idea that they're now ramping up the Artemis missions. They're going to get boots on the moon, and the importance of having people up there rather than just sending up lunar rovers.
Okay, the next critical portion of this mission is the last chapter of this mission, re-entry and splashdown.
That's right. And so I'm going to walk you through what's going to happen tomorrow. Splashdown is at 5:07 p.m. That's when they're going to land about 100 kilometers off the coast of San Diego in the Pacific Ocean. This is Artemis I doing that back in 2022. So this is an uncrewed capsule, but it's the same Orion capsule that these astronauts will be taking. 42 minutes before splashdown, they're going to separate from the service module. So there's the crew module, where all the astronauts are, and there's the service module that has the thrusters that took them to the moon and other essential things that have kept them alive through these 10 days. That will not be necessary as they're coming back down. The service module will burn up in the atmosphere as the crew module, hopefully safely, makes its way back down. The parachutes are going to release as they continue to make their way down in a very precise pattern to make sure that they all deploy properly. There are fail-safes as well, so there's very little likelihood that something could go wrong at this step, which is good news. One of the things that we've been keeping a close eye on, though, is the heat shield on the capsule, because that's one of the things that was of most concern after the Artemis I mission. The Orion capsule came back. There were concerns about the heat shield. The way it works is it's called an ablative heat shield. So little pieces of it, as the capsule re-enters at 40,000 kilometers per hour and the surface of it reaches 2,700 degrees Celsius, little pieces of it to carry that heat away flake off and move, carry that heat away. And you can think of it just like a human sweating. When we sweat, the water takes a lot of the heat out with it, and then it evaporates away and carries the heat away as well. That is the same thing that the heat shield is doing for the Orion capsule. So that will flake away and make a landing. A lot of work has been done in the last 3 years to make sure that that heat shield will stand up and is going to work properly. And so NASA is very confident that that will be the case, which is good news. And then from there, the capsule will land going about 20 kilometers per hour, touch down with the parachutes in the Pacific Ocean, and then recovery teams are going to make their way out using boats and helicopters to extract the crew from the capsule. They'll have to open the hatch from the outside, take the astronauts out one by one, have helicopters lift them to a nearby Navy carrier or Navy ship that will be there prepared to take the astronauts in. Within 2 hours after they land in the ocean, they should be getting medically examined and make sure everything is good to go. And we expect to hear from NASA shortly after they've all been safely removed, both before and after, about the status.
And we'll be live here on CBC News Network with all of that. Darius, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So what does the journey home entail for the Artemis II crew? Let's continue with that theme. Rob Thacker joining us now. He's an astrophysicist at St. Mary's University in Halifax. So Rob, as Darius was just explaining, less than 24 hours away from splashdown. From your perspective, what are you looking forward to tomorrow?
I'm looking forward to a successful mission. It's been incredible so far. Knowing Jeremy Hansen, Jeremy has done some amazing work going around the country visiting people, and seeing him happy and giddy in this mission has been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I had a chance to interview him and got to really admire and like him. So I also feel that, you know, kind of personal stake in his happiness. So it's funny that you'd mention that. He talks about risk and managed risk, and that certainly is the case tomorrow. What are some of the potential dangers during re-entry?
Well, I mean, the real issue is post-Artemis I, they saw what's called the spalling on the avcoat on the tiles in the heat shield, and that's a real concern. There's even been a few former astronauts who've been quite critical of this, but there was a big review done in January. I think you can be pretty certain that Jared Isaacman is not going to be NASA commander for very long if this goes wrong. So I think this is a very well planned out re-entry, and it will go okay.
Let me ask you a question that a lot of people have asked me, or a number of people have asked me. We have been to the moon. We have been around the moon. Why are we doing it again? What are we gaining from Artemis II?
It's a different story, although funnily enough, the situation is somewhat similar. We have a boots on the moon situation again. That was what we had in the 60s and 70s, and we've got one now with China going to the moon. But this is really looking at the long-term vision. You can think of it in terms of like building railroads. The generation that builds the railroads, I mean, things open up because of that, but they don't often see the benefit of it. It's the generations that come afterwards. So going to the moon now is about building something for the future, which is very different from just putting boots on it in the first place.
You're an astrophysicist. I get the sense you're somebody who is fascinated by space even beyond your professional capacity. What impact have the images and the sound and the coverage of Artemis II had on you?
I have to be honest and say the photographs are truly spectacular. I mean, if there's anything you can complain about with the photographs, there's almost too many of them, right? So we have the amazing blue marble picture. People may remember that from Apollo and the Earthrise image, but we now have the Earth set image. We now have two beautiful crescents, and of course, the sun blocked out by the moon, that eclipse picture. It's just been incredible to see those images and get a true sense of being up and around the moon.
And, there's some talk about, well, we do know that the plan here ultimately is to put a base on the moon to get American astronauts there before Chinese astronauts. But there is some talk about this being a building block to going to Mars. Mars is a lot further. And, I mean, do you see that as a realistic goal?
If I'm completely honest, I think going to Mars is something the international community should be doing together. Right? For one country to do it, it's such a big project and there are so many unknowns. Even spending a considerable amount of time in a single spacecraft for months at a time. Like we're joking at Artemis II being in a small spacecraft for just 10 days being a bit uncomfortable. Now you're talking about 6 months. So there are many, many things that need to be ironed out before we do that. I think we will eventually go towards Mars, but for now, going to the moon is a reasonable stepping stone.
Rob Thacker, an astrophysicist at St. Mary's University in Halifax. Thanks for speaking with us.
Thanks very much.